Sarah Martinez walked slowly into the music room at Roosevelt Elementary School. The clock on the wall showed 6:30 in the evening. She was tired from working all day, but she had promised to come to this meeting. Her daughter Emma was in third grade at this school, and the teachers had asked all parents to come talk about helping with school programs. Sarah looked around the room. About 20 other parents sat in plastic chairs arranged in a circle. Most of them wore nice clothes and looked like they had good jobs. Sarah felt different from them. She wore old jeans with a small hole in the knee and a gray sweater that she had bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her hands showed the marks of hard work. She found an empty chair in the back corner and sat down quietly. Sarah did not like being the center of attention. She preferred to listen and stay in the background. That was how she had lived for many years now. The music teacher, Miss Jennifer Walsh, stood at the front of the room. She was a young woman with bright red hair and a friendly smile. She looked excited but also worried about something. Miss Walsh had only been teaching at Roosevelt Elementary for 2 years, but all the children loved her classes. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Miss Walsh said to the group. "I know you are all busy with work and family, so I really appreciate that you took time to be here." Sarah folded her hands in her lap and listened. She noticed that Ms. Walsh kept looking at an old piano that sat in the corner of the room. The piano was brown and scratched, and some of the white keys looked yellow with age. "I asked you all to come because our music program needs help," Ms. Walsh continued. "The school does not have much money for arts classes. We have been trying to teach the children about music, but it is very difficult without the right tools." A man in a business suit raised his hand. "What kind of help do you need?" he asked. Miss Walsh walked over to the old piano and put her hand on top of it. "This piano has been broken for 4 months," she said sadly. "It was the only instrument we had for the children to learn on. Now we cannot have proper music lessons." Sarah watched as Miss Walsh opened the piano lid. Even from across the room, Sarah could see that several keys were missing and others were stuck down. "How much would it cost to fix?" asked a woman wearing expensive jewelry. "The repair shop said it would cost $800, Ms. Walsh replied. "But even if we fix it, this piano is very old. It does not stay in tune for long, and the sound is not very good." Sarah knew about old pianos. She knew how they sounded when they were not cared for properly. She knew how the keys felt when they stuck or when they were loose. She had played on many pianos like this one during her childhood, in small churches and community centers where her family could not afford lessons at fancy music schools. "What about buying a new piano?" suggested another parent. Miss Walsh shook her head. "A good piano for the school would cost at least $5,000. We have looked at used ones, but even those are too expensive for our budget." Sarah listened as the parents talked about different ways to raise money. Some suggested having a bake sale. Others talked about asking local businesses to donate money. A few parents offered to write letters to the school board asking for more funding. While they talked, Sarah watched the children's artwork hanging on the walls. There were drawings of musical notes and instruments. One picture showed stick figures playing piano, and at the bottom, a child had written, "I want to learn music," in crooked letters. Sarah's heart felt heavy as she looked at that drawing. It reminded her of her own daughter Emma, who came home from school every day disappointed that there was no music class. Emma loved to sing and dance around their small apartment. She was always asking Sarah to teach her songs or to find a way for her to take piano lessons, but piano lessons cost money that Sarah did not have. She worked 2 jobs just to pay rent and buy food. During the day, she cleaned offices in downtown buildings. At night, she worked at a laundromat, washing and folding clothes for people who were too busy to do it themselves. Every penny she earned went to taking care of Emma and keeping a roof over their heads. Sarah looked down at her hands. They were rough and red from cleaning supplies and hard work. Her nails were short and practical, not painted or fancy like some of the other mothers in the room. These hands had scrubbed thousands of toilets and mopped countless floors. But these hands remembered other things too, things that Sarah tried not to think about anymore. Mrs. Martinez? Sarah looked up quickly. Miss Walsh was speaking to her. I'm sorry, Sarah said quietly. I was not paying attention. Miss Walsh smiled kindly. I was just saying that you helped set up the food table tonight, and I wanted to thank you. The cookies you brought were delicious. Sarah felt her cheeks get warm. They were just from a box mix, she said. Well, they were perfect, Miss Walsh replied. I can tell you care about helping the school. Other parents nodded and smiled at Sarah. She felt uncomfortable with the attention and looked down at her lap again. The meeting continued for another 30 minutes. Parents volunteered for different committees and made plans for fundraising events. Sarah listened but did not volunteer for anything. She wanted to help, but she knew she did not have time. Between her 2 jobs and taking care of Emma, she barely had time to sleep. As the meeting was ending, Miss Walsh made one final announcement. I know this is asking a lot, she said, but if any of you have any musical experience at all, even just basic piano skills, I would be so grateful if you could help. Even if we cannot fix our piano right away, maybe someone could show the children simple things about music. Help them understand how instruments work. The room became quiet. Parents looked at each other, but no one said anything. I took piano lessons when I was little, said one mother, but that was 30 years ago. I can barely remember anything. I play guitar a little, said a father, but not very well. Miss Walsh looked hopeful. Any help would be wonderful, she said. The children are so eager to learn about music. Sometimes I see them pretending to play piano on their desks during regular class time. Sarah felt something stir inside her chest. She thought about Emma pretending to play piano on their kitchen table at home. She thought about all the children who wanted to learn music but had no way to do it, but Sarah also felt afraid. She had kept her past hidden for so many years. It was safer that way. Easier. No one expected anything from the quiet cleaning lady who just wanted to take care of her daughter and stay out of trouble. The meeting ended, and parents began to leave. Sarah stood up slowly and gathered her purse. Tomorrow she would have to wake up at 5 in the morning to start cleaning offices before Emma got up for school. As she walked toward the door, Sarah heard Ms. Walsh talking to another parent about how sad it was that the children could not learn music. Sarah stopped walking and turned around to look at the broken piano one more time. In that moment, something inside her heart cracked open just a little bit, like a door that had been locked for many years finally getting some light. The next week passed slowly for Sarah. Every morning she woke up at 5 o'clock to get ready for work. She would make Emma breakfast and pack her lunch, then walk her to school before taking 2 buses to reach the office building where she cleaned. During her lunch break, Sarah often thought about the parent meeting. She kept remembering the sad look on Ms. Walsh's face when she talked about the broken piano. She also remembered the picture drawn by a child who wanted to learn music. At home in the evenings, Emma would practice her homework at their small kitchen table. Sometimes she would tap her fingers on the table like she was playing piano keys. Sarah would watch her daughter and feel a mix of love and sadness. Mama, Emma said one evening while eating dinner, why doesn't our school have music class anymore? Sarah put down her fork and looked at her daughter. Emma had her father's dark eyes and Sarah's thick black hair. She was a smart girl who asked lots of questions about everything. The piano is broken, sweetheart, Sarah explained. It costs a lot of money to fix it. But I really want to learn piano, Emma said. My friend Jessica takes lessons after school, and she can play songs. Real songs, not just pretend ones. Sarah felt her heart squeeze tight. She wanted to give Emma piano lessons more than anything. She wanted to give her daughter all the opportunities that she herself had lost many years ago. Maybe someday, Sarah said softly, the same thing she always said when Emma asked about music lessons or other things they could not afford. 3 days later, Sarah was at Emma's school for a different reason. Emma had forgotten her math workbook at home, and Sarah had brought it during her lunch break from work. As she walked down the hallway toward Emma's classroom, She heard piano music coming from the music room. Sarah stopped walking and listened. Someone was playing a simple song, but they kept making mistakes and starting over. The music stopped, and Sarah heard Ms. Walsh's voice talking to someone. Curious, Sarah walked quietly to the open door of the music room and looked inside. Ms. Walsh was sitting at the old broken piano with a small boy from Emma's class. The teacher was trying to show him where to put his fingers on the keys, but only some of the keys worked. "See, Tommy," Ms. Walsh was saying, "this key is supposed to make a sound, but it's stuck. And this one makes a sound that is too high. But we can still learn about how music works." Tommy looked frustrated. "It doesn't sound like real music," he said. "I know," Ms. Walsh replied gently. "But we have to make the best of what we have." Sarah watched as Ms. Walsh tried to demonstrate. A simple scale. The piano made awful sounds because some keys did not work and others were out of tune. But Ms. Walsh kept trying, her face showing how much she cared about teaching the children. Tommy tried to copy what Ms. Walsh showed him, but the broken piano made it almost impossible. After a few minutes, he gave up. "This is too hard," he said. Sadly, "The piano doesn't work right." "You did great, Tommy," Ms. Walsh said, but Sarah could hear the disappointment in her voice, too. "Maybe we can try again next week." After Tommy left, Sarah saw Ms. Walsh sit alone at the piano. The teacher put her head in her hands for a moment, looking very tired and sad. Sarah felt something strong inside her chest. She wanted to help, but she was scared. What if people asked her questions she did not want to answer? What if helping meant revealing things about herself that she had kept secret for so long? But then she thought about Emma and Tommy and all the other children who wanted to learn music. Sarah took a deep breath and knocked quietly on the open door. Ms. Walsh looked up, surprised. "Oh, hello, Mrs. Martinez. Is everything okay? Is Emma all right?" "Emma is fine," Sarah said, stepping into the room. "She forgot her workbook, so I brought it to her. But I heard piano music and wanted to see." Sarah's voice trailed off as she looked at the broken piano. Miss Walsh followed her gaze. "I was trying to give Tommy a little lesson during recess. He's been asking about music every day. But as you can see, it's very difficult with this old piano." Sarah walked closer to the piano. Up close, it looked even worse than she had noticed during the parent meeting. Several keys were completely missing. Others were cracked or chipped. The wood was scratched and faded. "It must be frustrating for you," Sarah said quietly. Ms. Walsh sighed. "I love teaching music. It's why I became a teacher. But without proper instruments, I feel like I'm failing these children. They're so eager to learn, and I can't give them what they need." Sarah stood next to the piano bench and looked down at the keys. Her fingers tingled with old memories. "Mrs. Martinez," Ms. Walsh said suddenly, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but at the parent meeting last week, when I mentioned needing someone with musical experience, I noticed you seemed to be thinking about something." Sarah felt her heartbeat. "Get faster. I don't know what you mean." Ms. Walsh spoke gently. "I've been teaching for several years, and I've learned to notice when people have connections to music. Sometimes it's the way they listen or how they look at instruments. You looked at this piano like you understood something about it." Sarah touched one of the working keys very lightly, not hard enough to make a sound. The key felt familiar under her finger. "I played a little when I was young," Sarah said carefully. "But that was a long time ago." Ms. Walsh's eyes lit up with hope. "Really? Even basic skills would be so helpful. The children need to see how piano keys work, how to position their hands, simple things like that." Sarah felt torn between wanting to help and wanting to protect her secret. "I'm not sure I remember much," she said. "Would you be willing to try?" Ms. Walsh asked. "Just for a few minutes? I could call a few children down from recess if you don't mind. Nothing complicated, just showing them basic finger positions." Sarah looked around the empty music room. She thought about Emma tapping on the kitchen table. She thought about Tommy's disappointed face when the piano would not work properly. "I suppose I could try," Sarah said slowly. "But I work 2 jobs, so I don't have much time to help regularly." Even once would be wonderful, Ms. Walsh said excitedly. Let me call down a few children who have been asking about piano lessons. Ms. Walsh used the phone in her classroom to call the main office. Within a few minutes, 5 children came to the music room, including Emma. Sarah felt nervous when she saw her daughter's surprised and excited face. "Mama," Emma said. "What are you doing here?" "I brought your workbook," Sarah explained. And Ms. Walsh asked if I could help show you children a little about piano. The children gathered around the piano, their faces full of excitement and curiosity. Sarah sat down on the wobbly piano bench and placed her hands over the keys without touching them. "First," Sarah said, surprised at how natural it felt to teach, "you need to know how to sit and how to hold your hands." She showed the children how to curve their fingers and keep their wrists relaxed, just like she had been taught when she was their age. The children tried to copy her, holding their hands in the air over imaginary piano keys. "Very good," Sarah sighed, smiling at their eager faces. "Now, let me see if this old piano can make any music at all." Sarah pressed down on middle C. The note sounded flat and tinny, but it was recognizable. She tried a few more keys around it and found 5 keys in a row that worked well enough. "Music is made of patterns," Sarah explained to the children. "Like steps going up and down. Listen to this." Very carefully, Sarah played a simple 5-note scale using only the keys that worked. Even with the piano's problems, the children could hear how the notes went up like steps. "Now you try," Sarah said to Emma first. One by one, each child tried to play the simple scale. Sarah guided their fingers and encouraged them when they made mistakes. Even with the broken piano, she could see the joy on their faces when they made musical sounds. "This is amazing," said Tommy, the same boy who had been frustrated earlier. Miss Walsh watched from the side of the room with tears in her eyes. Sarah noticed the teacher's emotional reaction and felt both proud and nervous. After 20 minutes, Ms. Walsh said the children needed to go back to class. They thanked Sarah enthusiastically and begged her to come back soon. When the children left, Ms. Walsh turned to Sarah with a big smile. "Mrs. Martinez, that was incredible," she said. "You're a natural teacher." The children learned more in 20 minutes than they have in weeks. Sarah felt her cheeks get warm. "They're good children. They want to learn. Where did you study piano?" Ms. Walsh asked curiously. Sarah's stomach tightened. This was the question she had been dreading. "Just local teachers when I was young," Sarah said vaguely. "Nothing special," but Miss Walsh was watching her carefully. "The way you positioned your hands, how you taught finger technique, that wasn't just basic training. You've had serious musical education." Sarah stood up quickly from the piano bench. "I should go. I need to get back to work." "Mrs. Martinez, please," Ms. Walsh said gently. "I don't mean to pry. I'm just hoping you might consider helping us more. These children need someone like you." Sarah picked up her purse and headed toward the door. At the doorway, she stopped and turned back. "I'll think about it," she said quietly. But as Sarah walked down the hallway, she felt scared about what she had started. She had opened a door that she had kept closed for many years, and now she was not sure she could close it again. 2 weeks passed after Sarah's first piano lesson with the children. Every day, Emma came home from school asking when her mother would come back to help with music class. Other children in Emma's grade had also started talking about the nice lady who taught them about piano. Sarah tried to avoid thinking about the music room, but it was difficult. During her quiet moments at work, she found herself remembering the feeling of sitting at a piano again. Her fingers would move slightly as she cleaned, practicing old finger exercises that her body still remembered after all these years. Miss Walsh had called Sarah twice, leaving gentle messages asking if she would consider coming back to help the children. Sarah had not returned the calls. She told herself she was too busy with work, but the truth was more complicated. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, Sarah was cleaning the offices on the 15th floor of a downtown building. She worked alone most of the time, which she preferred. It gave her time to think without having to talk to anyone. As she emptied trash cans and wiped down desks, Sarah found herself humming quietly. It was an old song that she had not thought about in years, something she used to play when she was young. The melody felt good in her throat, like greeting an old friend. Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket. She looked at it and saw a text message from Ms. Walsh. Mrs. Martinez, I hope you don't mind me texting. The children ask about you every day. Would you be willing to come to our school assembly next Friday? We're having a talent show, and I thought you might enjoy seeing what the children can do. No pressure to participate, just come as Emma's mom if you'd like. Sarah stared at the message for a long time. She knew Ms. Walsh was trying to draw her back to the school, back to music. Part of her wanted to go, but another part of her felt afraid. That evening at dinner, Emma was more excited than usual. "Mama, we're having a talent show at school next Friday," she announced. "Kids are going to sing and dance and do magic tricks. Miss Walsh said some parents might come to watch." "That sounds nice, sweetheart," Sarah said, not mentioning the text message. "I wish I could play piano for the talent show," Emma said sadly. "But I don't know how, and our piano is still broken." Sarah felt her heart ache for her daughter. "What are you going to do instead?" "Maybe I'll sing a song," Emma said, "but it would be so much better with piano music." That night, after Emma went to bed, Sarah sat at their small kitchen table and thought about her life. She worked hard every day to give Emma a good home and enough food to eat. But she knew there were things missing from Emma's life, things that cost money or required skills that Sarah was afraid to share. Sarah walked to their bedroom and opened the closet door. In the back, behind old shoes and winter coats, was a small box that she had not opened in many years. She pulled it out and sat on the bed. Inside the box were old photographs, sheet music, and newspaper clippings. Sarah picked up one of the photographs. It showed a young girl, maybe 12 years old, sitting at a beautiful grand piano on a concert stage. The girl was wearing a white dress and had her hair in neat braids. She was smiling at the camera, her hands positioned over the piano keys. That young girl was Sarah, but from a different life, a different world. Sarah looked through more photographs. There she was at age 8, receiving her first trophy from a piano competition. At age 10, performing with a youth orchestra. At age 14, standing next to her piano teacher after winning a scholarship to study music. The newspaper clippings told the story of a child prodigy who had amazed audiences with her musical talent. Local girl accepted to prestigious music school, read one headline. Young pianist performs with symphony orchestra, said another. Sarah touched the newspaper clippings gently. They felt fragile, like they might crumble in her hands. Just like the dreams they represented, she had been good at piano. More than good. For the first 16 years of her life, music had been everything to her. She practiced for hours every day, traveled to competitions on weekends, and dreamed of becoming a professional pianist. Then everything changed. Sarah put the photographs back in the box, but she kept out one piece of sheet music. It was a song by Chopin that she had loved to play when she was young. The paper was yellow and worn from being handled so many times. She looked at the musical notes on the page and realized that she could still read them. Her brain still understood the language of music, even after all these years of trying to forget it. Friday came quickly. Sarah had decided not to go to the school talent show. She told Emma she had to work late, which was not exactly true. She could have asked for the time off, but she was scared of what might happen if she went. At 5 o'clock. Sarah was riding the bus home from work when her phone rang. It was Miss Walsh. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm so sorry to bother you," the teacher said. "I know you're probably working, but we have a small emergency at the talent show." Sarah felt worried. "Is Emma okay?" "Emma is fine," Miss Walsh said quickly. "But our piano player for tonight got sick and can't come. We have 5 children who plan to sing songs with piano music, and now we don't know what to do. I was wondering. I know this is asking a lot, but is there any chance you could help us?" Sarah's stomach felt tight. "I told you I only know very basic things. Please," Ms. Walsh said. "The children are so disappointed. You don't have to play anything complicated. Just simple accompaniment for their songs. The children's families are all here, and they've been practicing for weeks." Sarah could hear voices and activity in the background of the phone call. She imagined Emma and the other children getting ready for their performances, excited to show their families what they had learned. What songs do they need? Sarah asked before she could stop herself. Simple ones, Ms. Welsh said hopefully. Happy birthday, twinkle, twinkle, little star, things like that. Songs you probably know. Sarah did know those songs. She could play them easily, even on a broken piano. I suppose I could try to help, Sarah said quietly. Really? Ms. Welsh sounded so relieved. Oh, Mrs. Martinez, thank you so much. The show starts in an hour. Can you come now? Sarah looked out the bus window. She was only 10 minutes away from the school. I'll be there soon, she said. When Sarah arrived at Roosevelt Elementary, the school was buzzing with activity. Parents and grandparents filled the hallways carrying flowers and cameras. Children in costumes ran around excitedly, getting ready for their performances. Sarah found Miss Walsh in the music room, looking stressed and grateful at the same time. Thank you so much for coming, Miss Walsh said. I know this is short notice. The children are in the auditorium getting ready. We have about 30 minutes before the show starts. Miss Walsh led Sarah to the school auditorium, where a small stage had been set up. In the corner of the stage sat the same broken piano from the music room. It looked even worse under the bright stage lights. Will this piano work well enough? Sarah asked, feeling nervous. I hope so, Ms. Walsh said. We tested it earlier, and most of the keys make some kind of sound. Sarah walked onto the stage and sat at the piano bench. The auditorium was filling up with families, but she tried not to look at them. She opened the piano lid and gently pressed a few keys. The piano sounded terrible. Several keys made no sound at all, others were wildly out of tune, and a few stuck when she pressed them. Sarah realized that playing simple songs on this piano would be much harder than she had expected. Mrs. Martinez? Sarah turned around and saw Emma walking toward the piano. Her daughter was wearing a pink dress and had a big smile on her face. Mama! I didn't know you were coming, Emma said, hugging Sarah tightly. Miss Walsh asked me to help with piano music for the children who are singing, Sarah explained. Emma's eyes got very wide. You're going to play piano for the talent show? In front of everyone? Sarah felt her heart start beating faster. She had not really thought about the fact that she would be performing in front of a large audience. She had been so focused on helping the children that she forgot about all the people who would be watching. Just simple songs, Sarah said, trying to calm herself down. Ms. Walsh came over with a list of songs that the children would be singing. Sarah looked at the list and felt a little better. They were all songs she knew very well. Places, everyone, called the principal from backstage. The show is about to start. Sarah sat at the piano and tried to calm her nervous hands. She had not performed for an audience in over 20 years. The last time she played in front of people, she was 16 years old and full of confidence about her musical future. Now, she was 38, tired from working 2 jobs, and scared that she would embarrass herself and the children. The first part of the talent show included magic tricks, dance performances, and children reciting poems. Sarah watched from the side of the stage, waiting for the first child who would need piano music. Finally, Ms. Walsh announced, "Next, we have Tommy Rodriguez, who will sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with piano accompaniment by Mrs. Martinez." Sarah walked to the piano as Tommy, a small boy with big brown eyes, stood next to it with a microphone. The auditorium became quiet as Sarah placed her hands over the piano keys. She started to play the opening notes of the familiar song, but the piano sounded so bad that she almost stopped. Several notes were completely wrong and others made no sound at all, but then Tommy started singing in his sweet. After the talent show ended, Sarah tried to leave quickly. She helped Emma gather her things and said goodbye to Ms. Walsh, hoping to slip out before anyone could ask her questions. But as they walked toward the exit, several parents stopped. Mrs. Martinez, that was beautiful," said Tommy's mother. "Where did you learn to play like that?" "It was nothing special," Sarah said quietly, looking down at the floor. "Nothing special," said another parent. You made that broken piano sound like a real instrument. My daughter wants to know if you give piano lessons. Sarah felt uncomfortable with all the attention. I'm sorry, but I work 2 jobs. I don't have time for teaching. Miss Walsh appeared beside them. Mrs. Martinez, could I speak with you for just a moment before you leave? Sarah wanted to say no, but Emma was talking excitedly with her friends, so she followed Miss Walsh to a quieter corner of the hallway. What you did tonight was extraordinary, Miss Walsh said. I've never heard anyone play like that, especially on such a difficult instrument. I just played simple songs, Sarah replied. Ms. Walsh shook her head. No, you did much more than that. The way you adapted to the broken keys, the harmonies you created, the way you supported each child's singing, that level of skill doesn't come from basic lessons. Sarah felt her heart beating fast. I should take Emma home. It's getting late, Mrs. Martinez, please, Miss Walsh said gently. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I just want to understand. You have a gift that could help so many children. Don't you want to share it? Sarah looked across the hallway at Emma, who was laughing with her friends about the talent show. Her daughter looked happier than Sarah had seen her in a long time. Some things are better left in the past, Sarah said softly. That weekend, Sarah could not stop thinking about the talent show. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the feeling of her fingers on the piano keys and the sound of Emma's voice singing. It had felt so natural, so right, like breathing after holding her breath for years on Monday morning. Sarah was surprised to find Ms. Walsh waiting for her outside the office building where she worked. I'm sorry to bother you at work, Ms. Walsh said, but I really need to talk to you. Sarah looked around nervously. She did not want her supervisor to see her talking to someone during work hours. I only have a few minutes, Sarah said. Ms. Walsh handed her a folded piece of paper. This morning I got a call from Maria Santos. She's a music teacher at the community college, and she was at our talent show on Friday. Sarah unfolded the paper. It was a printout of an old newspaper article from 22 years ago. The headline read, Local teen wins state piano competition. Below it was a photograph of a 16-year-old girl sitting at a grand piano, smiling at the camera. Sarah's hands began to shake as she looked at her own young face in the photograph. Maria recognized you, Ms. Walsh said quietly. She remembered reading about you in the newspaper when she was studying music in college. She said you were famous in music circles around here. Sarah tried to give the paper back to Ms. Walsh, but her hands were shaking too much. Sarah Delacroix, Ms. Walsh read from the article. That was your name before you got married, wasn't it? Sarah felt like she could not breathe properly. For over 20 years, she had worked so hard to keep her past hidden. She had changed her name when she got married, moved to a different part of the city, and never talked about her musical background. I don't know what you want me to say, Sarah whispered. Miss Walsh's voice was gentle but excited. The article says you were accepted to study at Juilliard. That's one of the most famous music schools in the world. It says you performed with the City Symphony Orchestra when you were only 12 years old. Sarah closed her eyes and leaned against the wall of the building. She felt like the ground was moving under her feet. Why didn't you go? Ms. Walsh asked. What happened? Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then, in a voice so soft that Miss Walsh had to lean closer to hear, she began to tell her story. My mother got very sick when I was 16, Sarah said. Cancer. The doctor said she needed someone to take care of her full time. My father had already left us when I was little, so it was just me and her. Miss Walsh listened without interrupting. I was supposed to start at Juilliard that fall, Sarah continued, but I couldn't leave my mother alone. So I stayed home and took care of her instead. For how long? Miss Walsh asked gently. 3 years, Sarah said. She died when I was 19. By then, it was too late for music school. I had to work to pay for her medical bills and the funeral. I met Emma's father, got married, had a baby. Music seemed like something from a different person's life. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes with the back of her hand. What about Emma's father? Ms. Walsh asked. He left when Emma was 2, Sarah said. He said being a father was too hard, too expensive. So it was just me and Emma like it had been me and my mother. Ms. Walsh was quiet for a moment, absorbing Sarah's story. So you've been working 2 jobs and raising Emma alone for 6 years? She asked. Sarah nodded. We get by. Emma is healthy and smart and happy. That's what matters. But Sarah, Miss Walsh said, using her first name for the first time, you gave up everything, your talent, your dreams, your career. Don't you miss it? Sarah thought about the question. She had not allowed herself to think about missing music for many years. It hurt too much. Missing something doesn't change anything, Sarah said. I made my choices. I don't regret taking care of my mother or raising my daughter. But what if? You didn't have to choose anymore? Miss Walsh asked. What if you could have both? A life with Emma and a life with music? Sarah looked at Miss Walsh like she was speaking a foreign language. That's not how life works for people like me, Sarah said. Music is for people who have money and time and support. I clean toilets and wash clothes. That's my reality. Ms. Walsh pulled out her phone and showed Sarah something on the screen. Maria Santos wants to meet with you, she said. She runs a program at the community college that provides free music education for low-income families. She also knows people in the local music community who might be interested in hearing you play. Sarah shook her head. I can't. I haven't performed in over 20 years. I wouldn't even know where to start. You performed Friday night, Ms. Walsh pointed out, and you were incredible. That was different, Sarah said. That was just helping children sing simple songs, Ms. Walsh smiled. Sarah, what you did Friday night was not simple. You took a broken piano and made it sing. You created beautiful music under impossible conditions. That's not something just anyone can do. Sarah felt tears coming to her eyes again. She had spent so many years convincing herself that her musical ability was not important, that it was a luxury she could not afford. I have to get to work, Sarah said, trying to end the conversation. Will you at least think about meeting with Maria? Ms. Walsh asked. Just to talk. No commitment to anything. Sarah took the newspaper article and folded it carefully. I'll think about it, she said. That evening, Sarah sat at her kitchen table after Emma went to bed. She spread out the old newspaper article and read it completely for the first time in many years. The article described her as a young pianist with extraordinary talent and a bright future in classical music. It mentioned her scholarship to Juilliard and quoted her piano teacher saying she had the potential to become one of the great performers of her generation. Sarah remembered being that confident 16-year-old girl who believed that anything was possible. She remembered practicing for hours every day, not because she had to, but because she loved it. She remembered the feeling of sitting at a beautiful grand piano and knowing that her fingers could create magic. She also remembered the day the doctor told her that her mother had 6 months to live. She remembered making the hardest decision of her life, choosing love over dreams, family over fame. Sarah picked up her phone and looked at Ms. Walsh's contact information. She started to type a text message several times, then deleted it without sending. Finally, she wrote, I will meet with Maria Santos, but I can't promise anything else. She sent the message before she could change her mind. 3 days later, Sarah sat in a small coffee shop near the community college, waiting to meet Maria Santos. She had told Emma she had an errand to run after work, which was not exactly a light. Maria turned out to be a woman in her 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. She recognized Sarah immediately and gave her a warm hug. I can't believe it's really you, Maria said as they sat down. I followed your career when I was in college. You were an inspiration to so many young musicians. Sarah felt embarrassed. That was a long time ago. Talent like yours doesn't disappear, Maria said. It might get buried under life circumstances, but it's still there. They talked for an hour. Maria told Sarah about her program at the community college, which provided free music lessons and performance opportunities for families who could not afford traditional music education. We have a small concert every few months, Maria explained. Nothing fancy, just local musicians sharing their talents with the community. The audience is usually families, friends, people who love music but don't often get to hear live performances. That sounds nice, Sarah said, but I don't think I'm ready for anything like that. Maria smiled. What if I told you that Emma could be part of the program too? Yes. The month passed quickly. Sarah found herself thinking more and more about the upcoming concert at the community college. She had not told Emma about it yet. Unsure if she would actually have the courage to go. At work, Sarah caught herself humming old songs while she cleaned. Her coworkers began to notice that she seemed different, lighter somehow. When one of them asked if something good had happened in her life, Sarah just smiled and said she was looking forward to the weekend, 2 days. Before the concert, Emma came home from school with exciting news. "Mama, guess what?" she said, dropping her backpack by the door. "Miss Walsh told us that the school might get money for a new piano." Sarah looked up from folding laundry. "Really? How?" "Some people heard about our talent show and want to help." Emma explained. Miss Walsh said a lady from the community college talked to the principal about starting a music program. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She realized that Maria Santos had been working behind the scenes to help Roosevelt Elementary. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice calm. "And Mama," Emma continued, "Miss Walsh asked me to give you this." Emma handed Sarah a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note from Miss Walsh. "Dear Sarah," the note read, "I wanted you to know that your performance at the talent show has started something beautiful. 3 local businesses have already donated money toward a new piano for our school. But more importantly, you've shown our children that music is possible even under difficult circumstances. Whatever you decide about your future with music, please know that you've already made a difference. Thank you for sharing your gift with us." Sarah felt tears come to her eyes as she read the note. That evening, after Emma went to bed, Sarah made a decision. She called Maria Santos. "Maria, it's Sarah Martinez," she said when Maria answered the phone. "Sarah, I'm so glad you called. Are you planning to come to the concert this weekend?" "Yes," Sarah said, taking a deep breath. "And I was wondering, would it be possible for me to play something?" "Just one piece, nothing complicated." There was silence on the other end of the phone for a moment. "Sarah, are you sure?" Maria asked. Gently. "I don't want you to feel pressured." "I'm scared," Sarah admitted, "but I think I need to do this. For myself and for Emma. What would you like to play?" Maria asked. Sarah thought about the piece of sheet music she had kept from her. Old Life, the Chopin Nocturne that she had loved so much when she was young. "Chopin," she said, "Nocturne in the flat major." "That's a beautiful piece," Maria said. "Are you sure you remember it well enough?" Sarah smiled for the first time in days. Some things you never forget. The day of the concert, Sarah was so nervous she could barely eat breakfast. She had practiced the Chopin piece on an old keyboard at the community center, but she knew that performing it in front of an audience would be completely different. "Mama, you seem worried about something," Emma said as they got ready to leave. For the concert, Sarah had decided to tell Emma the truth about where they were going and what she planned to do. "Emma, I want to tell you something about your mama," Sarah said. Sitting down next to her daughter on the couch, Emma looked curious. "I'm a little worried." "Before you were born, I used to play piano," Sarah began. "Not just a little bit, but very seriously. I was good at it, and I had dreams of becoming a professional musician." Emma's eyes got wide. "Really? Like the people who play on TV?" "Something like that," Sarah said. "But then life changed, and I had to make different choices. I stopped playing piano to take care of my family." "Is that why you were so good at the talent show?" Emma asked. Sarah nodded. "Today, we're going to a concert where local musicians perform for their families and friends. And I'm going to play a piece of music that I used to love when I was young." Emma jumped up excitedly. "You're going to perform? In front of people?" "I'm very nervous," Sarah said honestly. "I haven't performed for a real audience in over 20 years." Emma hugged her mother tightly. "Mama, you're going to be amazing. I know it." The community college auditorium was smaller than Sarah had expected, which made her feel a little better. About 100 people filled the seats, mostly families with children. The atmosphere was warm and friendly, not formal or intimidating. Sarah and Emma found seats in the middle section. Sarah's hands were shaking slightly as she looked at the beautiful grand piano on the stage. The concert began with a children's choir singing folk songs. Emma watched with fascination, and Sarah could see her daughter imagining herself as part of the group. Several other performers followed. A teenager playing violin, an elderly man singing opera, a mother and daughter playing flute duet. Each performance was met with warm applause and encouragement from the audience. Finally, Maria Santos walked onto the stage. "Our next performer is someone very special," Maria announced. Many years ago, she was recognized as one of the most promising young pianists in our state. Life took her in a different direction, but today she's returning to share her gift with us. Please welcome Sarah Martinez. Sarah felt like her legs might not work as she walked toward the stage. She could hear Emma clapping enthusiastically from the audience. When she reached the piano, she turned to look at the audience and saw faces full of kindness and expectation. Sarah sat at the piano bench and adjusted its height. The grand piano was beautiful, perfectly tuned and well maintained. It was nothing like the broken school piano she had played on recently. She placed her hands over the keys and took a deep breath. For a moment she was 16 again, full of confidence and love for music. Then she began to play. The opening notes of the Chopin Nocturne filled the auditorium like a gentle whisper. Sarah's fingers remembered exactly how to shape each phrase, how to bring out the melody while keeping the accompaniment soft and flowing. As she played, Sarah felt 20 years of buried emotion flowing through her fingers and into the music. She thought about her mother, who had sacrificed so much for her musical education. She thought about Emma, who deserved to see her mother's true talents. She thought about all the dreams she had put aside and all the love she had poured into. Being a mother instead, the music grew more complex and passionate, and Sarah let herself disappear into it completely. She was no longer the tired cleaning lady or the worried single mother. She was simply a musician, sharing something beautiful with people who wanted to listen. When the last note faded away, the auditorium was completely silent. Sarah looked up at the audience and saw tears in many eyes, including Emma's. Then the applause began. It started softly and grew stronger, lasting for several minutes. People stood up from their seats, and Sarah saw Emma jumping up and down with excitement. Sarah felt overwhelmed by the response. She had forgotten how it felt to connect with an audience through music, to share something so personal and have it received with such warmth. After the concert ended, many people came up to Sarah to congratulate her and ask about her musical background. Emma stayed close to her mother's side, beaming with pride. "Mama," Emma whispered, "I want to learn piano like you." Sarah knelt down to Emma's eye level. "Would you really like to take piano lessons?" "More than anything," Emma said. Maria Santos approached them as the crowd was beginning to leave. "Sarah, that was absolutely beautiful," she said. "I have a proposition for you." Sarah listened as Maria explained her idea. The community college was looking for someone to teach piano lessons to children and adults who could not afford private instruction. The pay was not much, but it would be flexible around Sarah's other work schedule. "You could teach during evenings and weekends," Maria said, "and Emma could take lessons as part of your compensation." Sarah felt her heart racing with possibility. "You really think I could do it? Teach, I mean?" "I saw how you worked with the children at the school," Maria said. "You have a natural gift for teaching, and your musical skills are extraordinary. These students would be lucky to learn from you." That night, after Emma fell asleep, Sarah sat at their kitchen table and thought about the offer. Teaching piano would mean less time at her cleaning jobs, but it might also mean a chance to use her talents in a meaningful way. She thought about all the children like Emma who wanted to learn music but could not afford lessons. She thought about adults who had always dreamed of playing piano but never had the opportunity. Most importantly, she thought about the feeling she had experienced on stage that evening. For the first time in 20 years, she had felt completely herself. Sarah picked up her phone and sent a text message to Maria Santos. "I would love to teach for your program. When can I start? 3 months later, Sarah stood in the music room at Roosevelt Elementary, watching Emma and 5 other children practice scales on the school's new piano. The fundraising effort that had started after the talent show had been successful, and the children now had a beautiful instrument to learn. Sarah taught piano lessons 3 evenings a week at the community college and Saturday mornings at the school. She still worked one cleaning job to pay their bills, but her life felt completely different. Emma was progressing quickly with her piano lessons and had joined the children's choir. She often told her friends that her mama was the best piano teacher in the whole city. Ms. Walsh had become a good friend, and they often collaborated on music programs for the school.